Good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming. It's very nice to be here. Tim Barrett from Birmingham Children's Hospital. Although I've got some slides, what I'll try and do is just speak to them for those of you who can't see them. And the first thing I think to say is it's such a relief to be able to talk to you, having started a clinical trial, having talked about it for about the last 5 years, with my great apologies that we've finally actually started it. And then secondly, I wanted to introduce some of the team, because a lot of team members are here today, which is really helpful. So perhaps what I'll do is ask them to stand up so that people who know who they are, and then they can talk to them at lunchtime as well. So if Michelle, Alice and Rachel just want to stand up, and then people know who they are. So those of you know, these are our clinical research nurses who are looking after the patients at the Children's Hospital. Thank you. That's fantastic. Ben, you know, Ben, do you stick your hand out? You have to stand up. Ben looks after the adult side here, and Raj, hopefully you know Raj as well. He's the neurology doctor for the children's side as well. Lynn is here somewhere. Lynn Savage. Lynn, do you want to stand up as well? Lynn is a really important person. She's the adult research nurse, adult neurology nurse as well. So we'll be looking after patients recruited on the adult side. So do talk to her at lunchtime here as well. And who else have I got down here? Jodie, you know, and I can't thank Wellchild enough for having got this going, because Wellchild has supported Wolfram research for 21 years now, since about 1998, and it's been really, really fantastic to get things going and all the support that they've given us as well. And then over in the back we've got Marie from the clinical service on there, Marie who was here last night, and Susan in the corner, Susan Wave, Susan Hina, who's the children's diabetes nurse here as well. Talia is coming, but I haven't seen Talia. So Talia's here. Thank you, Talia, for coming. So Talia looks after the adult clinic in terms of the vision diagnostics and assessment as well. So I think that's reasonable. Oh, and Dr. Mogosha, exactly. Go, Mogosha, do you understand that as well? So Mogosha's on the laboratory side and working in the labs with Dewey and Susie, and actually developed some of the data that actually allowed us to make this clinical trial as a reality at the beginning. So I think have I left anybody out from Birmingham that I should have mentioned? Am I there? All right, fantastic, excellent, fantastic. So very quickly, just going back again from first principles, why are we doing this clinical trial? Why the drug we've chosen? Why does it take so long? What are patients being asked to do? And of course, how's it going and what's happening as well? So I'm doing a short version of what we talked about at the St. Louis conference in July. So first of all, why are we doing this clinical trial? So this goes back to a survey that we did in about 2014 with Tracy Lynch's help and the French Wolfram Association and the American Snow Foundation, asking what symptoms they ranked as the most important for families, and all of the different associations within this space put vision first. So we thought, could we try and design a treatment or a study that could address the issues about vision? Now, we chose that, whereas I quite like to have chosen diabetes, because I'm a diabetes doctor originally, but people felt that vision was more important at that stage. And then secondly, it's really important to acknowledge the St. Louis Research Clinic. This is probably the only Wolfram Research Clinic in the world with the numbers of patients. What have I done? The St. Louis Research Clinic, I was introduced to it when Professor Alan Perlmutt was the head of this a few years back now, and the St. Louis Research Clinic's been going longer than we've had a clinical service in the UK for this. And I'm so grateful for their generosity in sharing data from both Bess and Tammy and Fumi and the other people in there as well, that's allowed us to actually develop some outcome measures for a clinical trial as well. And what this shows is, if we're going to look at vision, Tammy and Dr. Herkel very kindly shared the lines of individual people and what happened to their eyesight over a period of time. And what you can see for different ages is that these lines all go up to the top right-hand corner, which means that the eyesight is slowly getting worse, but at different rates in different people. And that allowed us to use it as a marker to see whether a treatment might work or not, because the average rate of progress we could work out from that, and then what we think would be a clinically significant improvement if we could slow that rate of progress down or even stop it. So because of the data generated by the St. Louis Clinic, it was able to inform a clinical trial to do that. So that's where it comes from. That's what I hope makes sense. And then similarly, with Professor Hershey's data that she explained earlier on, she very kindly analysed some of the data from the MRI scans from Birmingham as well, and these are some of the different coloured spots on the chart, a little bit like the one that Professor Hershey showed earlier on as well, to show that the change in the brain volume is parallel or very similar to what happens in North America. And it also allowed us to do MRI scans to see if we can slow that progress down with a treatment in a trial. And that's why we are asking people to have MRI scans as part of the trial as well. So I hope what that shows really is just how fantastic it is to work with great international collaborators, people who are prepared to share the data to let this going as well. And that as different researchers around the world, we are trying to work together to try and get some solutions for this as well. So the second question is, why sodium valproate? Where did that come from? Well, there were two bits. First of all, it's been a medicine that's been around for over 50 years. There have been over 3,000 papers published on it and its effects on the brain. And it's well known to treat epilepsy, as we know that. It's been around for about 40 years. But it's also a medicine that we know can get from the stomach to the brain and work that way. But lots of drugs don't get into the brain because there's a special barrier that protects the brain from you. But this is a medicine that does get into the brain, so therefore hopefully it will have an effect that way as well. It's also been shown to work to improve endoplasmic reticulum stress that Professor Arano talked about, and other mechanisms as well. And it's also been shown to protect neurons or brain cells as a neuroprotector. So there's a logic why it might be looked at. And then finally, some very nice experimental work done by Dr. Zattiger and Dr. Dewey Astuti in the labs showed that in a cell model, it seems to protect cells in Wolfram syndrome. So lots of lines of argument as to why hopefully it's a good thing to test to see if it can slow down the condition in Wolfram. So having chosen a medicine for part of that, what are the people being asked to do from that? So it's a study to see if sodium valproate is safe and is it effective in slowing down the progress of the condition in children and in adults. And it's designed by the regulatory agencies to be a safe study to give a definite answer at the end of it. That's the area. And because of that, people are randomized to have the medicine or have what's called a placebo, as you know. One of those two groups, and it's across a number of different centres, so that it can't just work in Birmingham, it's got to be shown to work in other countries as well, if we can help it to get licensed. And because it's what's called double blind, as doctors taking part, we're not allowed to know what patients are taking, and participants are not supposed to know what they're taking either. And that way, we're trying to avoid bias. So we're trying to avoid people thinking they're on the medicine, therefore they must be getting better, or they're not on the medicine, they're not getting better. And it gets the bias out of it and makes it easier to prove if a medicine really is effective. That's what we have. So the important bits to know, as we've talked about this already, we said what the medicine is. People taking part can change their minds. Once they've started, they can stop at any time if they want to. 2/3 of participants will be randomised to the medicine, and 1/3 of participants are randomised to the placebo. And as I said, we don't know which is which, but we've done it that way so that people taking part have got a better than evens chance of having the medicine to slow things down. That's the way it goes. And we don't know. If the study shows the medicine works, then it can be licensed to give to everybody with Wolfram. So if we can prove it works. That's the area. And the different stages, so some of you in the audience are participating, so I'm really, really grateful for that. But if you forgive me while I just explain it to others as well. We have a screening phase where first of all people come along for an eye check and a genetic test and a blood test and a balance test and many of the things that Professor Marshall and Professor Hershey and Professor Arano have talked about. So we do the Wolfram Unified Rating Scale so that the information from this can be put together with the information from the St. Louis Clinic. And we do the MRI scan following the same protocol that Professor Hershey's given us so that data can be shared. And we do the sugar test, the C-peptide test that Professor Arano and Professor Marshall said, in the same way so that that can be pulled as well, to be shared. we can do those. If people are eligible, if they've got enough vision that we can measure over the course of the study, and that they've got a mutation in the Wolfram gene, and then we do the mini-best test as well. And if that's the case, then people are randomized to take the medicine. In the second stage, the medicine is increased gradually over about 4 weeks to the biggest dose that people can tolerate, and then held there at that point. And if the medicine causes side effects or problems, we can then reduce the medicine down again at that point. We've got to stay at that level. And then there are safety checks for the first 12 weeks to make sure that people aren't having bad side effects or other problems from it. And then after that, it's an eye test every 6 months to see if the vision is beginning to stabilise, and then a full test every 12 months for the MRI scan. So it's quite a long study, but what we're trying to do is to combine it with the regular assessments, the regular visits that people might have anyway. And then the final visit at the end, after the treatment's finished, is to check that people are well. One question people have said is, what happens if at the end of the study, the medicine's working for me and I want to carry it on? And because it's already licensed for other conditions, there are ways potentially where people could carry it on even at the end of the study while waiting for the results. Okay, so that's just a cartoon showing it that 2/3 of the people go on the arm of the treatment and 1/3 go on the placebo arm, and they get regular checks and follow-ups during the course of this. And it's been a big effort, I'm afraid, to actually get it up and running, to get it sorted out. So, how's it going at the moment? Well, we're sort of here at the moment, open to recruitment at the Children's Hospital. We've been through a 3.5 year period of getting all the regulatory approvals to be done, getting it checked through the ethics committees to make sure that it's all right, get an agreed protocol to make sure that everybody's following it in exactly the same way, and get the medicine made, and get the dummy medicine made. And I naively thought we could do that in 6 months. That would be a piece of cake, that would be fine. It's been nearer 3.5 years, and I think I did have a bit of hair when I started this, but I've definitely got less hair now that we've got that far. Where we're at the moment is that the Children's Hospital has been open as a site since January the 7th, I think it was, when we first started. The adult hospital is literally almost open. We had a meeting about that on Wednesday, and there's about 3 final bits that we're sorting within, aren't there, Ben, to try and get going. And that the contracts have been signed with Poland. So Poland will be the first international site to open. We're expecting in November time. And then all the funding and the contracts have been agreed with Spain and France, so they'll hopefully be opening soon afterwards. So we're now in a position almost when other sites in Europe will be able to open as well, which is great. It's really good. So we're there. So far, 13 people have consented to take part. 11 people have been randomised. And what I've put on here are the known side effects for the medicine that we're looking at. So the ones that we're asking people about, headaches are quite common, sometimes feeling a bit sick, but they're usually transient, and sometimes feeling a bit dizzy as well, can be some. Some people, but not all, can put on weight, and some people, but not all, can lose hair for a while, but it can then grow back again afterwards, and that can be dose dependent, so it's different. But not everybody gets these conditions. Quite a few people can feel tired, and so if that's the case, one can reduce the dose as part of it. Very rarely, people can get liver problems, especially if they're taking this with different medicines as well. So there's lots of safety blood tests all the way along to check that the liver's all okay. And so far, touch wood, there's not been a problem with anybody in this study with that. We have to make everybody aware that sodium valproate, if there's a possibility of getting pregnant, one mustn't take sodium valproate because it might affect the unborn baby. So that for people with a childbearing age who are on the study, must make sure that they think about ways not to get pregnant to do that. So it's just a really important safety thing. And I have to say it at every talk I do to make people aware of this. And my colleagues, Dr. Wright and Professor Gupta, are much more familiar than this than me because you prescribe it more often. So. Wolfram Syndrome UK has been an absolute star, and I'm so grateful because you've done a brilliant fundraising effort to help people to get to Birmingham and help pay for their accommodation and travel as well. And it's been absolutely brilliant, and we're so grateful for it. So it's absolutely fantastic that we've done. About 5 people, I think, now have reached the 6-month check. My biggest worry was that people's vision might be a lot worse at that point. Thankfully, that's not the case. So it doesn't look like that the sodium valproate is making people's vision worse, which is what you don't want, of course. And that most people's vision is within the margin of error, so pretty much the same as it was at the first check. But we can't tell whether that's an effect or not. We have to follow people for a longer period, like Professor Hershey's chart earlier on, to see whether an effect is sustained over time. But at the moment, I don't think we're doing any harm, which is the most important thing, I think, for all of this that we have. This is something that came up from other people as well. What happens if a new treatment comes along? Because it's a long study, and there's lots of research going on, the FUMI may come up with a new version of dantrolene or something like that that might be good, or GLP-1 agonists are being talked about in things as well. So, what we have to say is that if any new developments come along, we'll tell participants straight away. So it's really important that they know and be informed of what's happening. And then it's up to them to decide, do they want to carry on, or do they want to see if there's a different treatment that they want to take instead of that. You can't take part in 2 clinical trials at the same time, so that can be obviously difficult, because that way you just confound it and we just can't tell what medicine is going to work at that point. That's why it's important. But if a new treatment gets licensed for use in Wolfram, then that means all the safety checks have been completed and it's been shown to work, then people can take that and still be in the clinical trial, can still do that. So it's really important that, as I said, if we do get more evidence, we'll tell you, and those of you who might want to take part, if you hear about things and you want to ask about, you tell us and we'll try and answer them as well. We'll do that. Almost finished, almost there. What's happening next? Where are we going next then? Okay. So a bit of an ugly slide, but what it really shows is just how long it's taken from finding a drug target back in 2013, in fact getting a registry in 2011 as well, through to getting funding from the UK Medical Research Council, getting ethics approval, getting the first participant recruited, the second site opening as well. So we're coming to the end of 2019 now on this chart here, with Spain, France and Poland opening at the end of this year. We're hoping that the last participant will be recruited in 2020, and then we've got an independent data monitoring and safety committee that will look at the data with all the patients in 2021. And they'll tell us if there's absolutely no evidence that it's working, they can stop the study at that point. If it looks promising, it looks like there is, then the study will carry on and it'll keep going. And I'm afraid this chart is going to carry on so that next year I'll add another year or 2 to it as well, because to complete this study it's probably going to take through to about 2022 to give an answer. But the most important thing is that we give families a definite answer. Does it work or doesn't it? And that's what the purpose of trying to do this study. Okay. Right. So, in terms of that, the big thank you then was really to all of the families. Some of you in the room who are taking part, thank you so much, because we wouldn't have been able to get here and do this without you guys taking part. I'm really, really grateful. And for those of you who might be interested, then Lynn is here and Ben is here as well today, and others as well, about the possibility to take part too. A big thank you to Tammy, Bess and Fumi for flying over across, giving up your long weekend to come to the UK to talk to us as well. And most importantly, for sharing the data, because without that possibility, we'd have never got this study off the ground. It's just absolutely fantastic. And then finally, a major thank you to Wolfram Syndrome UK, to the French Wolfram Association, the Snow Foundation, the Italian Foundation, and all the support from family support groups, which is just absolutely brilliant. And we're just so grateful for all the support for that. And well done, Jodie, thank you for giving up all of your weekends in October for doing this. That's it. Thank you very much.